Russia continues to destroy Ukrainian energy infrastructure. But attacks on gas companies have been added to the strikes against Ukrainians' electric grids. Most likely, this is due to the failure of the prospects for the negotiation process between Ukraine, the Russian Federation, United States, and European Union, which have been widely reported in the mass media over the past month. Literally a few hours before the launch of a new Russian strikes, the parties of this war, represented by the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, in his speech at the G20, and the Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Nikolai Patrushev, once again exchanged uncompromising ultimatums from the position of the winners of the war. The Ukrainian leader said that Ukraine does not intend to make any territorial concession and the counteroffensive on the Ukrainian troops will continue until the complete liberation of all territories of Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky actually demanded the capitulation of Russian Federation, saying that in order to start negotiations, it is necessary to restore the territorial integrity of Ukraine within the 1991 borders with Crimea and Donbass, and also the Russian Federation must pay reparation to Ukraine and punish war criminals, her soldiers. Such a position of Ukrainian authorities obviously caused extreme irritation in the Russian Federation, and as a result, already on November 15, Ukraine was subjected to the largest air strike in the entire period of the war. About 100 missiles were fired at the critical Ukrainian energy infrastructure facilities, as well as the drones. As a result, at least 30 civilian infrastructure facilities were damaged, including 15 power grid facilities, and emergency blackouts were introduced throughout the country. Many cities and the regions of the country, including Kyiv and Kyiv Oblast, were partially left without power supply. Khmelnytska nuclear power plant was forced to shut down both power units, and Rivne nuclear power plant, one of the 4 power units. As a result, for November 17, 40% of consumers in Ukraine remained without electricity. At least about 10 million families were without electricity. And for example, in Kyiv region, it was near 78% of families. Huge economic damage also has been caused. If there are no electricity for most or bigger part of the day, for example, 18 hours from 24 hours, the heat supply system is unlikely to be able to work normally. It can again raise the topic of evacuation. Its possibility has already been discussed in Kyiv. Thus, the Russian Federation is trying to put pressure on the authorities and society of Ukraine, forcing them to accept the conditions of so-called Russian peace plan. The Russian threatens to destroy the Ukrainian energy system, which could cause a humanitarian and political crisis, is also very, very common goal. In addition, strikes against Ukrainian critical infrastructure deplete a significant portion of Ukrainian air defense resources and anti-rockets. The course of negotiations and the statement of the President Vladimir Zelensky at the G20 summit was probably also influenced by the statement of the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, who, in conversation with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States, Mark Milley, said that Ukrainian military will not accept any negotiations, agreements, or compromise decisions. He called the leaving by Russia of all occupied territories as the main condition. Valery Zaluzhny, in fact, did not leave Vladimir Zelensky potential retreat routes. After this statement, the President of Ukraine in the G20 summit should have seemed more patriotic than the Commander-in-Chief of Ukrainian Armed Forces. in the eyes of his society. At the same time, it is difficult to say whether this statement by Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces of Ukraine, Valery Zaluzhny, is support for position of the President of Ukraine, or is it an independent step with a political connotation and pressure on the President of Ukraine? Or maybe it's also, this is the position of the military cycles of Ukrainians' foreign allies. The statement of the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, regarding public negotiation with the President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, is also an attempt to raise the stakes and take a public patriotic position. It looks like a stadium version in 2018 between Zelensky and Poroshenko during the presidential election in Ukraine. It is expected that such a proposal will never be accepted in the Russian Federation. In Ukraine, for the time being, one should expect an aggravation of hostilities and intensification of missile and bomb strikes, which can already be observed on the Ukrainian energy infrastructure, especially on electric networks and gas distribution system. Last week, the United States and NATO once again faced the choice to whether to start a direct war with the Russian Federation or not. The reason could be a rocket that fell on the territory of Poland and killed 2 people. The ownership of this rocket is still disputed in the mass media and political ground. The United States decided not to start the direct war and advised its partners not to do so. The United States has so far strictly adhered to the strategy of direct non-intervention in the conflict because of the high risk of its transformation into a nuclear one in that case. At the battlefield, the Russian army continued to strengthen the left bank of the river of Dnieper and are advancing in Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Ugledar direction. The armed forces of Ukraine went on the offensive along the entire front line in the Lugansk direction, in the area of the city of Popasna, in the Kherson direction. After the retreat of Russian troops to the left bank of the Dnieper River, the armed forces of Ukraine deoccupied more than 200 settlements over the current week, more than 5,000 square kilometers on the right bank of the Dnieper River. The United States and allies continues to provide significant military assistance to Ukraine, so the White House asked Congress for an additional $38 billion to help Ukraine. The funds are planned to be used for defense equipment, humanitarian aid and support for nuclear security. At the same time, it will be difficult to expect that in the future arms deliveries will also occur regularly and the required quantity. Representatives of United States Republican Party, which received a majority in the United States House of Representatives, have already demanded an audit of funds allocated to Ukraine. On the other hand, there is the issue of Taiwan also. Thus, the attention of the administration of United States President Joe Biden will be more focused on both the internal political confrontation and the crisis, or possible crisis in Taiwan. All this may have a negative impact on the future of on the intensity, on the flow of aid to Ukraine. The grain deal was extended for another 4 months, 120 days. What happened largely due to the fact that all parties are not interested in additional destabilization of the situation of the world in connection with the growing threat of hunger of third countries. The consent of the Russian Federation to the extension of the grain agreement may be associated both with the partial lifting of sanctions and will be special participation of Turkey in this process. It is obvious that Turkey is the main beneficiary of the grain deal and is now a grain hub for the sales of grain to the third world countries, it is likely that the Russian Federation also has its part of the shadow benefit in this process. For the economy of Ukraine, the continuation of the grain deal is important for increasing financial revenues from export to the country's budget. It can be tens of billions of dollars. In general, more than 80 million tons of grain were exported from the Ukraine in August-October, through ports more than 30 million tons. Until the summer, it is planned to send another 45 million tons of grain to export. According to the various estimates, as a result of the work of the grain corridor, Ukraine has already earned from $4 to $5 billion. The extension of the grain agreement also plays in favor of the fact that in the near future the Russian Federation will not attempt to capture the city of Nikolaev or the city of Odessa, escalation in Black Sea region. Thank you, friends, for watching this video. Please write down your question. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. See you next time. Bye.